everybody, welcome back to GLR. This video is going to be a tutorial, a Promarker tutorial, and I figured I'd just show you guys how I would approach drawing rocks and stones, boulders, that kind of thing, and how I would colour them and the choice of colours that I use. So it's going to be a very quick tutorial, kind of like a follow along if you guys wanted to try it at home, and I hope you guys find a bit of use for it. And in the meantime, have a watch and I will see you guys just after. So I started off with three very simple shapes to present a rock formation, and I begin by using Cool Grey 2 as a starting point, followed shortly by Cool Grey 3, and then Cool Grey 4, which is the darkest of the three greys that I was using, just along the bottom edge. Then I go back up with the next lightest one, so from Cool Grey 4 I go to Cool Grey 3, blend them in as I raise higher, and then I drop down again and go back up to Cool Grey 2 to just blend that back in with the Cool Grey 3. So it gives you that sort of gradient that's going up. To finish this off, just to give a little bit of an edge to it, I decided to use the khaki and go along the bottom edges just to give it that sort of stony look and enhance the shadows. So jumping straight into some sandstone slabs that were like piled on top of each other, I decided to go for the blush to do the edges which I thought the sunlight would be hitting first. I followed up with satin for the next parts that were kind of looking further away from the sun. I took it up to putty and then into some tan for the darkest sections that you can see me doing here. I edged it around just to try and give a little bit more of a sense of shadow and some angles, and it just looks a little bit more rocky if you add in those shadowy sections and blend them back in. Same principle applies as I did with the greys. Okay, now for the last rock I decided to just do again another little random structure for the stone itself. But I thought, as I've used the greys on drawing number one, and I've drawn the second rock using the skin tones that Promarker produce, I thought for the last one I'd use all of them and try and make a nice sort of rock texture on them and see how well I can blend them. So I started with Cool Grey 4, which is the darkest of my greys. I used khaki here just to sort of fill in the sides that weren't directly hit by the sunshine, obviously. That's in my little rock formation there. I blended it back in with the cool greys just to get a bit more of a gentle transition. I followed this up with putty and tan, so this is the putty I'm putting on there, and then I'm going back in with a little bit of the khaki, and that sort of helps sort of blend it in again. Back to the tan, solidified that colour, and then I used the putty and the tan again just to blend over and try and get more of a gentle transition between the tones, and it seemed to work really well. I went back in and used a little bit of the Cool Grey 3 just to take the edge off. Now, once I'd done the basic setup for the colours and blended them as well as I could, I decided to do a little bit of a pen outline on it just to sort of make them jump and pop off the page a little bit. But what struck me with them was that they seemed a little bit out of place and a little bit removed, so I decided to select a few greens from the Promarker range and put a little bit of colour around the base of each of the rocks to give them a little bit of placement. So just as a little footnote, I went back in on rock number 2 with the cinnamon Promarker because I felt that the shadows weren't harsh enough and that there wasn't quite enough definition between the light side and the dark side of those particular stones. So I went straight back in after I'd applied that with putty and tan and just softened the edges of those shadows and just blended it back in with the original colour that I'd done. So for the grassy sections underneath each of the rock illustrations that I did, I decided to look at the type of stone that they sort of represented or looked like and what sort of environment it would look better in. So for the third rock that I drew, I just went for a more darker mossy kind of look because it looks a bit sort of green around the edge, and I used moss and pear green for the base of that one, and I followed up with a bit of lush green just to darken the shadows. On rock number 1, the grey rock, it was a very, very simple lime and bright green with highlighted with little lush green strands of grass. And for the sandstone blocks that I did, that was the same. That was a pear and moss that I used on that one as well. But for the background foliage, I just carried on with the pear green and done more of a dry grass look for it because it would be more at home in an arid kind of environment. So there you have it, guys. I hope it was of some use for you. It's always handy to see how other people work and their processes, and I figured this is just a really useful little tool. So there are the colours that I used. So this was for drawing number 1, my little boulder. This was for the sandstone slabs that I used on the second drawing there, and I done an amalgamation of all of those for the final part, which was kind of cool. Now that just gives you an idea of what pens I used and the colours as they come out. And then I will also say they are the colours that I utilised for the grass underneath the rocks at the end there. So it's just a quick recap for you guys, and I hope you get some worthwhile use out of my little process there. So if you did enjoy it and you found it useful, then please subscribe if you haven't already, hit the like button and hit the notification bell for any future content that I put out there for you guys. But in the meantime, it is a short one this week. I hope you found it useful. But in the meantime, I will say stay safe, stay clean, stay happy, and I will see you on the next one. Have a good weekend, guys.